To welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. I am Emily Bays. I am on the board of Ed, but I am only here tonight actually along with Julie Epstein, not as representatives of the board, but actually moderators for this forum to help with the process. We wanted to go over some housekeeping rules with you before we start. We want to let you know that this event is an hour long. It is being recorded and it will be posted on our website. We're asking that you put your name and your question in the Q&A. If you would like to ask your question live, just put in your name. If you just want me to ask the question for you, no problem, just put in the question. We are asking, due to time constraints, that we have only one question per person. If we have the time, we'll come back for more. Please do not include any personal or private information, and please do not limit your questions to an actual question as opposed to a situation that might have taken place. And again, this is all for the purpose of time. I want to introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Michael Hines here, who is our superintendent. We have schools. We have Dr. Shields here, who is our assistant superintendent for general education. I forget your title, Dr. Shields. And we have Dr. Mioli here, who is our assistant superintendent of curriculum. They will be answering your questions and be presenting. So I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Hines.
Thank you, Ms. Bays. I appreciate it. Let me just share my screen here. And all right, so before we begin, I want to just, like you just did, Ms. Bays, I want to welcome everyone for attending. Certainly appreciate everyone taking the time out of their very busy evening during a busy week. I want to thank our Board of Education, our administrators, our teachers, our staff, and our elementary subcommittee for all of their hard work over the past several months. And I want to especially thank Dr. Mioli, Dr. Shields, and our moderators this evening for joining us. And most important, I want to thank our parents and our community for joining us this evening and dedicating their time to understanding our elementary fully virtual learning platform this evening. You know, over the past several months, we've been working to ensure that our students who are inside our schools and of course outside of our schools who are virtual learners, that they have a positive educational experience. And over the past several weeks, certainly over the past several weeks, we've been listening to our parents and educators about the concerns they have brought to our attention, which we take very seriously. Now, we've worked very hard on focusing and balancing between safety and instruction and making sure students are socially and emotionally supported as well. And many families were kind enough before this forum today to supply their questions and concerns to both the Board of Education, to myself, and to Dr. Mioli. And so we just want to walk you through this very quick presentation tonight that we believe will answer some of those questions that you asked. Hopefully it answers many of those questions that you have asked or thought of. So I'd like to begin and move forward with the presentation. And let's see. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mioli at this time. And Dr. Mioli is going to take us through the first few slides, and then I will close out this presentation. So Dr. Mioli.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. For those of you who don't know, FVLP is our fully virtual learning platform. And that is the presentation that we're going to make tonight, which is a virtual school. Port Washington's virtual learning platform will serve all of our elementary students, kindergarten through 5th grade. Each grade will be provided with their own dedicated virtual teacher. This is something we've been hearing a lot about from the community, and we're happy to be able to provide that with this plan. Obviously, the core subjects are going to be a huge part of our virtual school, but we will also, as we always do, and as we will continue to do in our brick and mortar schools, focus on child development. And so, you know, you've heard us over a number of iterations of these plans talk about the importance of social and emotional learning, the importance of having, you know, not too much screen time, but obviously to focus on our instruction. So there'll be a good mix in this plan. Go to the next one.
Oh, sorry.
I'm trying not to read it, you know, like we could just do that. Okay, I'll read this one. So here's the framework. And I think hopefully, as Dr. Hines said, this will answer a lot of the questions that we got. And thank you for sending those to us this week. It helped us kind of set the table here for this presentation. Each grade level will have a dedicated certified elementary school teacher. We will have supervisors for each of the grades. 3 of our elementary principals will be sharing those responsibilities. Dr. Suzanne will be doing kindergarten and first grade. Dr. Cohen will be doing second and third grade, and Dr. Ferranti will be supervising fourth and fifth grade. So that gives you as parents a supervisor to go to as well as a teacher. So the cohorts will be split to have up to 30 students to work with at a time. I know a lot of the questions that we've gotten have to do with you know, the numbers that we sent out with the letter. And it's important to know that you know, it's not our intention to have 60 students, you know, a teacher work with 60 students at a time. Each grade level will have 1 of our 6 counselors, school counselors, supporting our students. And again, that goes back to what we talked about, what I talked about on the earlier slide about the importance of social and emotional learning. And so they will be available to do lessons with the teachers for the students, and they'll also be available to the parents. And parents should contact their building school psychologist for all CSE needs. So one of the things, I'm trying to go through this with deliberation so that you have time to ask questions, but I also want to be clear. We are setting up a very complete virtual school, but we're also trying to keep ties to the brick and mortar schools that every student is currently in. And so that's why you'll be hearing some things like this. So for school, for CSE needs, the students and their parents will be going to the building, the brick and mortar building, and those psychologists. And there'll be several. I'll try to point them out as we go along. So after classes are formed on October 5th, Dr. Allen and Mrs. Shapiro, who are in charge of our special ed programs and our ENL programs, will align services to those in our fully virtual plan, as they have been all along, to ensure our students with disabilities and English language learners are getting their mandated services. So again, we don't know who the students are because you haven't signed up yet. We do have a track record from the last month of having about 290 to 300 students, even though we have allowed some flexibility in going in and out. And so this has been happening for the last month. But after we know for sure who the students are, then we'll be able to really nail down those services. And again, those services will be provided by the school, the brick and mortar school. Principals will coordinate AIS, that's academic intervention services, for those who require it for virtual students. And again, the students in the virtual school will get those services from their brick and mortar school provider. So in other words, if your student receives reading, they will get their reading AIS support from the brick and mortar school teacher. So here's the plan. The 6 fully virtual plan teachers will plan lessons during the week of October 5th, which, believe it or not, is next week. So they will have the entire week to do that. Obviously, we'll be developing the class rosters because you will have up until, I think it is Sunday now, to sign up. So once we know exactly how many students in each grade, we'll develop the rosters and the teachers will be able to plan next week. We are planning to have the virtual school open on Tuesday, October 13th. We have the Monday off. Each teacher will be provided with a mentor grade level leader. Those of you who don't know, in every school, at each grade level, there is one person who takes a leadership role. And so we thought it was important, again, to bridge that gap between the virtual school and the brick and mortar schools. The Office of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, which is my office, will supply the integrated social studies information, Science 21 information for K-3, and Math and Focus digital. In other words, again, for those of you who don't know, we have we have excellent programs in place. And so we will make sure that the teachers in the fully virtual school have all of those resources available to them. They'll be working with the level leaders and they'll be able to get a head start on planning next week. And the Math and Focus, we have both digital and print resources, which is something I think is going to be very, very advantageous. Dr. Borsella, who is our literacy specialist, she will be working with teachers, excuse me, to support English language arts. So all in a way of saying that all 4 of the major curriculum areas have support for those teachers, not only next week to start the planning, but as we go through the year. Excuse me. So the student day is 8:30 to 2:30. That's the student day. Each day will start with a morning meeting with a full schedule for the day. A lot of you have asked about what the day will look like. And in many ways, it's going to mirror the remote days that we've been having for this whole month of September at the elementary level. As I'm sure you know, students have been coming, who have been coming to the brick and mortar schools have been coming in every other day and getting remote instruction based on our remote plan at home. And that's been going very well. And so this plan is based on that, but it's enhanced because we will have dedicated teachers to provide the instruction for your students. So every day there'll be a morning meeting where they'll go over the materials needed, times of live lessons, a review of homework and or previous day's work, and a check-in. And I want to remind everybody that, again, every student and every teacher has a district device at this point. They will be using them, obviously, and we will also be using Google Classroom as we have been through the whole month of September. So Google Classroom will be the place where the instruction starts, and then the teachers will use either Google Meet or Zoom to then have live instruction. So a typical school week will include the following, depending on the size of the cohort and the nature of the lesson, and also the grade level. Each live session will be 45 minutes long. Well, it will be about 45 minutes long. At the kindergarten level, we probably won't go that long. There'll probably be shorter lessons, more shorter lessons, but just for the sake, again, of giving you an idea of what the day looks like. They'll include a combination of whole group and or small group lessons. And again, that's a really important thing to remember. You know, we have, one of the reasons that we have added Zoom to our repertoire is it enables the teachers to have breakout sessions. And so they will give them another opportunity to have small group instruction and to be monitoring and going around working with smaller groups of students. A minimum of 2 live lessons. Usually it'll be ELA and math with small group instruction every day. And a minimum of 2 live science and or social studies lessons per week. So a typical school week will include the following: a minimum of 2 social and emotional learning lessons every week. As most of you probably know, each of the elementary schools has their own kind of brand of that. We have Sousa Strong, we have Salem Rocks, Daily Stars. All 5 of the schools have their own. And we've also been implementing parts of the Castle framework and other social and emotional curriculums and learning platforms. And the counselors will be working with the teachers to provide those lessons. Occasionally the counselors will provide them, but usually they'll be working with the teachers to provide those lessons during the week. Every student will have 1 special per day. It will start the week of the 19th, and those will all be live. That was something that was not in the letter that went out. We got a lot of questions about that and concerns. And so we're happy to say that all the students will have a special every day, and it will be a live special. They're going to be on the same 2-week rotation that is occurring in the brick and mortar schools. So most of you are probably familiar with that by now. We have phys ed twice a week, music, art, and PEP, and library. Those are the 6. And for every 2 weeks, then they shift on the specials. And the same will happen in the virtual school, in the fully virtual learning platform. The special ed teachers are coming from Manor Haven, Daly, and Salem. And just so happens that the schedules worked out well so that they could coordinate with the fully virtual school. So just so you know, that's where they'll be coming from. And I've already said this, but I want to keep reiterating it. There'll be both independent and group work through Google Classroom. So one of the questions we get all the time is, and it goes both ways. Some parents ask, is my kid going to be glued to a screen for 7 hours a day? No. And some people ask the opposite question, is there going to be a full schedule of instruction every day? The answer is yes, but it's not going to be live all day, every day. We wouldn't want that in a virtual school. So there will be a good mix of those things. The teacher day, the student day before was 8:30 to 2:30. The teacher day is 8 to 3, another half hour at each end. So the teachers will have a 40-minute break, but that's the teacher's prep, and an hour lunch every day. And this lunch period will occur at the same time as the brick and mortar school schedule. Consistent office hours will be shared with parents and students every week. And so if you're a parent and you want to reach a classroom teacher, not to have a conference, but to ask about a homework assignment or something that happened in one of the lessons that day, you'll have the opportunity, and there'll be a schedule for that. And they'll be in those half hours at the corners of the day, either 8 o'clock or 2:30. And I already said that. So we got a lot of questions about how this integrates. How does the fully virtual school integrate with what was live streaming, and what happens when kids are not in school for one reason or another, and what does that look like? So hopefully this will answer those questions. So for non-fully virtual students who must quarantine, they will not join the fully virtual cohort. They will stay with their teacher, their brick and mortar teacher, and they will live stream with them as they have been in the past couple of weeks with their regular brick and mortar teacher. So if you're considering fully virtual, you don't really need to know about that, except for the fact that those students will not be joining your students should students need to quarantine. Students who are awaiting COVID test results or who are out for any other COVID-related reason may also participate in the live stream from the regular brick and mortar teacher. So again, for those shorter duration periods, they will not be joining students in the fully virtual platform. Students who are absent from school because they are sick for 1 or 2 days, they're just out sick, as they always have. We've treated kids who are out for a day or two. Get better, do a little independent reading. We don't want you, reading Harry Potter, unless you are well enough to do so. But you should just be getting well. And again, those students will not be joining the fully virtual platform. And there's also no expectation for the classroom teacher in the brick and mortar school to live stream to those students who are out for 1 or 2 days.
Okay. So pass the baton. Thank you, Dr. Mioli. So, moving forward with the plan, some important information. Through this whole process of looking to design this, we're trying to, and I know we will, blend the best of both worlds with a good mix of not only activities that your children will be participating in, and of course having remote learning, this remote learning experience. But the whole time that we've been designing this is really trying to take a balanced approach, and that really has been the theme this year. Not only a balanced approach, but certainly trying to be as flexible as we can moving forward. And so we want to make sure that your children are active. We want to make sure that what we're presenting and providing for your children is educational. And again, as Dr. Mioli said, is trying to balance, screen time and instructional activities, and knowing when it's time for your child or children to take a break from the monitor, for sure. Because we know that, too much screen time is not good for you, and that's, across the board developmentally, and we understand too that it impacts, their attention, their energy levels, and sleep. So we were very cognizant of all of that moving forward. Now the timeline, as Dr. Mioli referenced before, is, if I go to the bottom of this timeline, the first full day of this program will take place on Tuesday, October 13th. But if we go back in time just a little bit, our elementary subcommittee has met several times certainly from July to August. I would say more so August, and then certainly when school started all the way through September. And our last meeting was on September 24th. And then we made that announcement on Friday. And we've certainly received a lot of feedback as far as, why share this information always on a Friday? It just happened to be, it really did, on Friday. And because when we thought of our timeline as far as the first day of school on October 13th, we wanted to plan backwards. And if that was our target date, there were a lot of things that had to take place before the 13th, such as reopening the opt-in, which, as we know, was this Tuesday, the 29th. But as you know, which is today, we're in the forum right now, clearly. And we moved the closing of the opt-in date from Friday to this Sunday, October 4th. And again, we're hoping that this forum answers many of the questions that you have. We are generating class lists based on the opt-in information that we received. And then the planning begins on October 5th through October 9th, but the planning never stops. It goes throughout the whole year, but to get us up and running, it's all of next week. And then, like I said, the first day, I should say, is Tuesday, October 13th, which we're very much looking forward to. And so that is the presentation. I know.
Dr. Hines, I think what we're getting is that a slide was missed. So I think the slide before the timeline was skipped.
Nope, that was it. It was well, I only had 2 slides, so those were the 2.
Are you talking about, which one are you referring to, Emily? He was on.
People are saying in the question and answers that a slide was definitely skipped. So I'm not sure. Okay, we'll ask. We'll let them ask their question.
Okay. And if that is the case,
Did you discuss when the opt-out was until?
Yes.
Okay.
It was until October 4th, which is this Sunday.
No, I'm talking about the timing on how long the program was.
Oh, hold on a second.
That was 2 slides ago.
Right.
So it was the slide before the plan that starts with "We aim." It is the students who are absent slide. Is, I think, then what you're referring to. 2
This one.
slides before time.
You know what? My apologies. Correct.
Thank you.
All right. So,
Okay.
Dr. Miele, I'll take this if you don't mind.
Yeah, that was actually my bad. I missed that. Just to take it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, and this is, and I'm glad you referenced that, Ms. Bays. All right. So let's look at.
It's everybody who's paying attention. Thank you, everybody who's paying attention.
Very much appreciated.
You can dismiss all those questions, by the way.
So, and this is really important information, clearly, because we received a lot of feedback regarding much of this information. So, to piggyback off of what Dr. Miele said about quarantining, students who are absent from in-person school other than quarantine and for an extended period, this will happen on a case-by-case basis. Again, throughout this whole year, it is incredibly important as a school district that we do remain flexible because we are in a pandemic. Now, while students are being combined to make one virtual grade level and a virtual school, we will maintain, and this is, again, one of the real common themes that we've heard from our parents over the past week, maintaining a connection with their brick and mortar school. This will be done through virtual HSA events and, of course, support services being delivered from each student's home-based school. And I can tell you that we will think of many other ways to keep your children connected to the school that they attend when they are physically in school. So parents must commit to the new elementary fully virtual learning program by October 4th again, which is this Sunday. And then their students, or their children, I should say, will be enrolled until January 8th. Now, the information that came out in the letter was for the full year. And again, you know, making sure we're listening to what our parents are saying, we moved that back to January 8th. So it gives you some time to see if this is appropriate for your child, and also maybe things change as far as what's happening regionally as well. Maybe things get better. Maybe things are just happening, you know, in your family that you need to adjust. So we moved that time to January 8th. Now, the next opportunity to opt in or out will be January 8th, as I said, and then that will move all the way forward till the end of the school year in June 2021. And then finally, it should be noted that all of our students that opt in for the in-person school after January 8th, they may not be assigned to their originally assigned classroom teacher due to space concerns. So let's say you had Mrs. Jones in 2nd grade at Daly, I'm just making that up. You started the year there, and now you're considering moving to this particular platform, and then you want to move back to school, let's say after January, just because of space concerns or things that may be happening, we're leaving that up to the discretion of the principal if we can move you back into that particular class. We may not be able to. We will certainly try, but we may not be able to, and that's really important information for you to have as you consider opting into this particular program. So with that, I just want to.
Thank you. That's the end, right? So we are going to post this presentation, Dr. Hines, correct, on the website?
That is correct.
Even the missing slide will be posted on the website. So everything will be posted on the website. Okay, great. So we have a question from Kelly McMasters. Can we please schedule an additional forum? 1 hour is not long enough for a 1-year commitment. Although Kelly, I think, put this up before you explained that it's not a 1-year commitment, but could you answer if we can have another forum?
So that is something, not to say that I want to answer it right now, but clearly if all of the questions are still not answered, let's say after this evening, and even with the questions that come our way via email, that's something I'll certainly discuss with the board if and when we need to do so.
Okay, next question, David Vincent. Can you please explain why we are making such a drastic change at this time when we are already seeing an increase in COVID cases nationally and in New York as well? So I guess, I don't know about the analogy, but I guess the question is, why are we making a change right now? Why should we change now?
Yep. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. And that's it's a common question. And I think there are probably there are two answers to that. One is the process to get to where we are just took a long time as far as meeting with our subcommittee. Lots of discussions, keeping the child at the center as far as how to move this forward. What's important to note at the beginning of this week, you know, before Tuesday of this week, the experience for an elementary student, if they were virtually staying home full-time, was it was live streaming one day, and then the following day, it was almost like a framework like this, where you have a Google Meet and more of an intimate conversation with your teacher and your classmates. Starting this Tuesday, it was all live streaming. And the educators, I believe, on that particular subcommittee really felt that that was not sufficient as far as an educational experience for all our children. So that is the reason for this particular change. And again, I think keeping at the center of all this is making sure there still is a connection between the child and their home school that they go to, if they were going there physically, but then making sure that we have a full-time dedicated educational, well, I should say a teacher dedicated to making sure that they are teaching kids and they're getting a real, I believe, a wonderful education doing so. So the timing of it, believe me, we understand October is not an optimal time, or being in school for 5 or 6 weeks is not an optimal time. But with live streaming full time, and we're thinking of our primary school children, kindergartners, first graders, we just didn't think that was a good experience. And so we moved in this direction.
Okay, next question. Will elementary classroom teachers at the brick and mortar school be pulled from their current class? And I'm sorry, I forgot the name. It's Mary Connolly is asking that question.
So the question is, or
Will the brick and mortar teachers be moved? How are we, I guess, what teachers
Yeah.
will we be using?
Sure. So Dr. Shields, do you mind if I move that over toward your end of the alley here?
Of course, Dr. Hines, not a problem. So we did an analysis and tried to be as the least disruptive as possible in creating these classroom assignments. So we reviewed such components as the tenure area, teacher certification, legal requirements that we had to consider, and we also looked at those teachers that expressed interest to work remotely for personal reasons. This was all coupled by the premise that we wanted to minimize the impact on the budget as we created these 6 slots for our virtual school. So we came up with a roster of teachers that we have teaching each of those grade levels. Dr. Hines, would you like me to run through that list of teachers?
I don't think that's necessary at this time. What we can certainly do tomorrow is to provide those particular names and who's going where to the public in very short order, because it is important for the families who are making this decision. I don't think we need to do that tonight, though.
Okay. Yep. So out of those 6 teachers, there are only 2 that were in physical classrooms right now. And I think that's the question that's being asked.
Yes, thank you. Adam Smith is asking, can you explain in a little more detail the process for in-school students to live stream? For example, if a child has sniffles, which technically would exclude him or her from their school without a COVID test, can they live stream from the first day? How will the process work to ensure the live stream is available?
So the question is really geared toward if a child, may be out for 1 or 2 days, will they have access to live streaming? And at this moment, the answer is no. It's really dedicated to the live streaming if and when it's really COVID related. If it's a longitudinal period of time, we're looking, between 10 to 14 days. That's where we're at this particular moment.
Okay, great. Amanda Moore actually had the same question, and I think you just answered it. The next question is from Marielle Derasmo. There should be an immediate window so we can quickly get back to the teacher our children have bonded with if this isn't working. I'm not sure what the question was. If there should be an immediate window so we can quickly get back to the teacher our children have bonded with if this isn't working. So I guess the question is the opt-out. They would like to be able to go back in to the fully virtual. I'm not sure. Marielle, I'm asking that you retype your question so we can understand that. Maybe. So I'm going to go to William O'Rourke. He says, so far it looks like our son will not only be losing his classroom teacher that he has built a relationship with. Okay, how does disrupting, so basically it's a special ed question. So how does disrupting a special ed student life get again? So I'm guessing Mr. O'Rourke's question is about the services that his child will be getting now that he won't be with his classroom. Will he still be getting services?
Yes, as Dr. Mioli articulated earlier, most definitely, there will be coordination between any service that's provided to any of our students. And again, not just with our students with disabilities, but our ENL kids. We're very cognizant of our most vulnerable populations that may be moving into this particular platform. And, and we will be working with Dr. Allen and others to ensure those things are taking place.
Okay, great.
Maybe I'll just add to that a little bit. I mean, I think the question is a good question, and it goes to what Dr. Hines said earlier, but I just want to elaborate on it. Up until very recently, I think it was Monday, I lost track of time, but the students were learning remotely every other day. And now that they're back in the brick and mortar schools every day, those students who were remote, through September, are only getting live streams since Monday. And so, yes, we understand that there's going to be a number of your children who have changes of teachers. And we understand that is going to be somewhat disruptive. But again, there are a lot of compromises. There have been a lot of compromises as we try to balance all of these needs. And we feel very good about the fact that there will be a dedicated teacher to those virtual students, and that they'll be able to build those bonds again. And then the special ed teacher will remain the same because it will be building based.
Great. Another question, can current FE learners remain with their teachers if live stream is being kept for those who need to quarantine? Many students are happy with the live stream platform. And I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name, so I'm not even going to try. So that's the question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Concurrent,
Yeah.
fully virtual learners remain with their teacher if live streaming is being kept for those who need to quarantine.
Yeah, listen, we really deliberated a lot in our subcommittee, regarding this. And, it's interesting because when we're listening to what's working and what's not working in real time, mind you, over the month of September, over the past several weeks, we've heard some stories where there were some great connections. And I don't mean through internet, I mean from interactions, through just how things were going from a live streaming perspective, certainly from a Google Meet perspective, but more so from live streaming as far as, students not interacting, or I should say interacting a lot. And then some where there was minimal interaction. And that's not finger pointing, saying, and blaming anyone in particular, but it's been a mixed bag as far as how it's been going and how often they've been on live stream. But the reality is, when the subcommittee met at the end and that decision was made moving forward, it was an either or proposition. We cannot do live streaming and then do and move in this direction with a virtual school. So, and when that decision was made, or that recommendation was made, it was to move in this direction. So I guess the long answer is unfortunately no.
Okay, great. So Kim Elardi is asking, what happens if we go full remote? Do we have to stay in the 60-to-1 school while the others are less than 20-to-1? Although I think, again, perhaps it wasn't clear that we're not 60-to-1 in this particular instance. And so I guess if you can clarify that for Ms. Elardi, and then also what happens if the whole school district has to go to remote? What does the fully virtual school, do they stay with their class as is?
Oh, Dr. Miele, you mind taking the first part and I can take the second part of that? Thanks.
I was going to go backwards. So what was the first part?
The 60-to-1 ratio. So why is it fair that we're 60-to-1 if we go fully remote? And the second part is, if we have to close schools and go fully remote for the entire school district, do the students in this fully virtual platform, do they remain in this platform, or do they revert back to classrooms?
So which part do you want, Dr. Hines?
I'll take the second part.
I thought you were going to say that. So look, there's no getting around the fact that there could be up to that many students the way we are sketching out now the program. But we have to see what numbers come in. But they will not be all taught 60 at the same time. There will be lots of opportunities for small group instruction, independent instruction that I mentioned before. We just need to move forward with that piece in terms of the numbers that we've seen through the month of September. We had, even though we gave people, as I mentioned earlier, the opportunity to opt in or out of the virtual, the remote learning, it was very consistently between 290 and I think it was 306 students. So that's what we've planned for. But I know that it will be a very rich educational experience for those students.
And I'll add, oh, I'm sorry, and I'll add to that, and I'll answer the second part of the question. Listen, the reality is right now, we don't know what those numbers are, and we won't know until really Monday, or yeah, I would say Monday for sure, as far as what they look like. And that may happen where there is a considerable more amount of students in one particular grade level than another. And we're very mindful of that. And if those things happen, again, speaking and staying within, the framework of being flexible, there are other things that we can do to potentially make that larger number smaller. I know the board has been extremely supportive of how we're moving forward, not only designing and creating this particular program, but if there are some things that we need to add to this particular program based on the numbers that we receive, that's something that we will have to strongly consider. The second part of the question has to do with, if a student is in this particular program and the whole district or the school goes remote, would they stay here? And the answer is yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the question comes from Amanda Bromberg. Will students be getting real, quote unquote, real, not virtual manipulatives and materials from the school's teachers? Also, will the teachers be teaching from a classroom or from home?
I like to go backwards. The teachers will be teaching from home. The manipulatives, we've been minimizing the number of manipulatives that we have been using this year, from math manipulatives to art supplies. Those that we have been individual ones. So I think where it's appropriate, there will be some, but there probably will be fewer than we have had in the past.
Okay, great. Nina Atkinson is asking a question we haven't heard before. Will you keep students together from their current classes that have been fully virtual in order to keep some friendly connection? It's a good question.
Well, I think the answer is yes, because if they're in the same class, they're in the same grade level, and if they're in the same grade level, they'll be together, with the grade level teacher. So in terms of parsing that out, if we get over 30 or so, I'm sure that that's something you'd be able to contact the grade level administrator about, just as you would in school. And I'm sure, if it's at all possible, it could be accommodated if there are if more than one cohort develops where the teacher is working with them in separate groups.
Okay, thank you. There seems to be confusion about January 8th. So the question is January 8th the date for opt-in and or opt-out? So if you can, again, if I understood the way you presented it, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is that when parents sign their form by October 4th, they are signing to stay within this fully virtual platform until January 8th. On January 8th, I guess in that time frame, they will have the opportunity to either put their child back into the brick and mortar, or they can sign on for the remainder of the year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's the answer. Okay. So I will move on. So I'm trying to get people that haven't asked questions. Kathy Capeless, why is 30 students at a time acceptable? This clearly would not be acceptable for an in-person class.
Yeah, I can answer that. And I would agree with you. And again, to Dr. Mioli's point, the focus is really on trying to make and to create those small instructional spaces. So even though they may meet, for 30 at some point, then like any classroom, you're breaking them up into smaller groups. So, and again, it really depends on how many students we actually get within each particular grade level. So there's a lot of things that we don't know right now, but listen, philosophically speaking, I would agree with you. But in the same breath, I have to be very honest with everybody, is that there are budgetary constraints as well. If we could, believe me, and I wish we could, hire X amount of teachers and bring them on board and become virtual teachers, we would love to do that. But the reality is right now, in the beginning of October, not to, well, no, I should reiterate what we've spoken at budget and facilities meeting and a board meeting. We've already overspent because of COVID $2 million than what we budgeted for already at this point. So we have to balance those two things as far as designing a program and using what we have to the best of our ability, and then being very aware overall globally as far as what our budget looks like. And this is about trying to find some happy medium between those two things.
Thank you. Okay, so Marielle's question has been clarified for me. Marielle is asking, if the FVLP is not satisfactory, can they go back to their school quickly? What will the window for a move like that be? Which I think we may have touched upon, but I guess the question, and it has come from other parents. So what happens if somebody signs up and they're unhappy? Do they have to wait until January?
And this is where it becomes very difficult, because it's for planning purposes to making sure that within our schools that we don't have a lot of movement between our virtual, I'll say, school at this point, and certainly the brick and mortar school. Most districts, and certainly we are as well, are trying to minimize the amounts of those times that happens as far as the sliding between in and out of these programs. But I have to say, I really believe, and I know Dr. Mioli does as well as Dr. Shields, that what we are looking to provide, we are actually very excited about. We actually think this is going to be a very rich experience for our kids, because it creates something that our parents are looking for, which is making sure that their children are at home and they're getting a really great education. And in the same breath, making sure that we're providing all those opportunities for kids and to stay connected with our schools. So we're hoping, if you opt in, that you decide to stay in because of what we're looking to do moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. Melanie is asking, is it possible to push back the opt-in date? It feels very unfair to have to make this choice, given we were only notified last week and we were under the impression we would have much more flexibility in opting in or out.
I can answer that. The flexibility, when we talked about in the beginning of the school year, certainly toward the end of August, was really dedicated for the month of September. That flexibility of really sliding in and out, between, being working virtually and then coming to the brick and mortar school, that was really to, make sure that parents felt comfortable. But once that decision was made, in order for us to move forward with that October 13th date, and believe me, we don't want to force parents to make a decision where they don't feel like they're informed. But to balance that equation too, we have to make sure we're working backwards. Like I said before, from October 13th, there is a lot that we have to do. And part of that is knowing how many students that we will have in case we have to make adjustments. So in as much as some parents feel like they have to make a decision very quickly, we're hoping after tonight and any other questions that others may have that we will answer via email that was really referenced in the beginning of this, that you'll have enough information at that particular point moving forward. But if we push back that date, it's only going to push back the start date for the school. And I think most of us would agree that wouldn't be a good idea.
So Joshua Milgram has a
Can I
question.
just add, Emily?
Sure, of course.
A lot of what has been happening over the last couple of months is just a lot of anxiety about unknowns. And it's obviously, something that we're all living with. We were very concerned, very anxious about bringing all of the students back in, as recently as Monday. How are they going to all be wearing masks? How are they going to stay behind shields? How are we going to get all the kids in and out of the building? And you know what? The kids are very resilient. The staff is great. You have great administrators. We are going to do everything in our power to make both sets of schools work. I know there are things we just can't answer for you, but I hope that you know that we will be working, we have been and we will continue to be working to have these experiences be the absolute best that they can for your children.
Great, thank you. We actually have somebody who has raised their hand and they would like to ask a question. So Julie, if you could please unmute Emily Tessio, and she will ask her question. Emily, you there? Wait, can I unmute her? Oh, ask to unmute.
I've asked to unmute her.
Right. Who have you asked?
So Emily, Tessio, if you just guess,
There you
thank
go.
you.
She unmuted. Okay.
I'm on mute. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily.
So
Question only, please.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but please limit to just a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So so Joseph needs to stay with his own teacher, and so why can't we just stay remote if we have to with the same teacher?
Thank you. That's the question. I think it has been answered, but do you want to answer it again, Dr. Hines?
Sure. When the committee last met, we discussed, which direction we were going in, and the direction, after much deliberation as far as what we felt as a committee moving forward, this was the recommendation moving forward. So the answer is, it can't be both. It was an either or, continuing with the live streaming. And by the way, and I think I said it, Dr. Mioli said it, it would just be live streaming moving forward. And in our estimation, that is not sufficient. That is not enough, educationally speaking, moving forward. Having those really direct interactions with teachers, meaningful interactions. I'm not dismissing the other interactions before with maybe Joseph's teacher. I'm sure it was a wonderful experience. But in our estimation, from a subcommittee standpoint, we felt this was the best way to go.
Great, thank you. Joshua Milgram has a question. The explanation of how the numbers per classroom will be kept to a reasonable number is still very unclear and non-specific. To make a long-term decision on schooling, this must be clarified. If 40, 50, or 60, okay, we need to mute Emily again. Sorry, there she is. Okay. If it's 40, 50, or 60 students enrolled in FELP in a single grade and there is one assigned teacher, how will the day work so that the students still get a full and equitable education? And if you could also please clarify whether the assigned teachers will be recent elementary school teachers. So will they have certification, and have they taught in elementary schools? So it was a kind of a...
So yeah, I can answer the first part of that. Again, if you go back to the presentation and just look at what we have required, so to speak, for each day, there are 2 live lessons and a live special, and then there are some weekly other requirements in there. So a teacher, if it is upwards over 30, between 30 and 60, they will be working through Google Classroom as they were on remote days for the past month, putting in materials, having some asynchronous lessons, and having cohorts of students that they could go back and forth with. And that can look a lot of different ways. Teaching is an art. And that's why I hesitated when we went through the slide and it was 45-minute lessons. There are a lot of 45-minute lessons, but there are a lot that are not. A teacher may choose to teach a 20-minute introduction of new material and then have some students work independently while he or she does breakouts with other students. And so it is very possible to have 2 cohorts of students being taught through the Google Classroom with the amount of live interaction that we have given you, and have it be a very rich experience.
Thank you. So a question with regarding from Elizabeth Milbank. Children will be out for longer than 1 to 2 days if they are waiting for a COVID test. Rapids are not always available. Having access to live stream means that my kids who are not particularly sick are going to be engaged. We want people to do the right thing and keep the children home with mild symptoms. I guess that wasn't a question, that was a statement. So I apologize. I didn't realize it was not a question. Okay, Mike Ertel, if I do not choose fully remote now and in the future, a month or two or three, COVID numbers in the community increase to a level I am not comfortable with, yet school remains open for in-person attendance, will I be able to switch at that time?
So if the regional numbers start to increase in Nassau County, or let's say where we are, the question becomes, is there some flexibility? And I think at this point, if we see our own numbers in our direct area start to increase, I mean, clearly that's going to be a conversation we will have to have, not only with the Board of Education, but clearly, you know, with the community as far as what direction we're going in. So if those things start to happen where the safety of our kids and the community comes into question, that's something we would have to revisit, of course.
Okay, thank you. Question from Caroline Ashby. Have the technical skills of the FLB teachers been vetted? What professional development has and will be afforded to them?
We have a staff developer, a teacher staff developer who's been very active with all of our teachers. That staff developer will also be working with the 6 teachers next week during the planning phase. And, you know, I can't speak for vetting in terms of all 6 of the teachers, but I have no doubt that they will be fully able to go live with their students. Again, we're not talking about the scenario, you know, which has been somewhat problematic in the very beginning of school with having a live group in front of you and a group at home and having to split your attention. In fact, this plan is, you know, one of the reactions to those criticisms in terms of trying to have direct instruction with a dedicated teacher. So again, I think we have the resources in place, and I know that those teachers will be fully ready to go on October 13th.
Okay, Mike is fact checking me. Thank you, Mike. He says, I specifically asked about the flexibility at the beginning of the school year and was told it was for the whole year. To be clear, now stating that flexibility was only intended for the beginning of the year is not accurate and not how it was sold to us previously. Okay, thank you. I guess that's still, I thought he was maybe adding a question. I lost the question, somebody asked it, but they'd like to know what form are they using to opt in their students? So has the form gone out, and do all parents have the form to opt into, like, so the October 4th deadline, can you just go over the process a little bit?
Sure. It was emailed, the registration form.
To all
to-
elementary students?
That's correct.
And is it on our website, or can we make it available on our website?
We can certainly make it available on the website, but initially it was on Monday that we emailed it to all our parents, elementary parents.
Okay, great. Elon Green is saying, my question is for Dr. Hines. By giving parents the choice between being fully in classroom or fully virtual and no opt-in later, this will inevitably inflate the number of children in each class. Why, Dr. Hines, are you prioritizing experience over the safety of children? So I think the overall question is, why are we making these choices? I don't know what the...
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think...
Okay, well, Elon, if you want to ask it, you can raise your hand and you can ask it. Okay, we have a question from Jan Key. FLB students have already spent a month and a half bonding. Why are their teachers in classrooms getting used to the schedule? How is this beneficial for their emotional well-being? In other words, you're taking them out of their class. How is it going to help their emotional well-being?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know if it's going to help their emotional well-being, and I'm sure Dr. Mealy can add to this after I'm done. Believe me, when we think about how this impacts kids or children who have bonded with their teachers, there's no doubt that is something that we take very seriously, which is another reason why we really need to move forward, I believe, by mid-October, as opposed to push that date back potentially. But these are things that we considered, and that's why moving into this program, and we have an SEL component as well to support our kids moving into this direction. It's something that I believe that we can handle, and believe me, we've given a lot of thought to it. The teachers and the principals who were on the subcommittee was something that we talked about. You know, what's going to happen? We would like to think that within a week, we're hoping and we believe their experience will be so great in this particular platform that they'll be okay. Another thing I just want to add too, because it seems to be a common theme, and I'm hoping our parents who are present tonight don't think this. It's not, we're trying to balance as far as the wants and needs of the kids who are children who are in a brick and mortar classroom and buildings, and the wants and needs of our students who are not there. And both are just as important as each other. And we truly believe with what we're offering right now, not just live streaming every day, even though that connection with the teacher is incredibly important, but what we're looking to provide in this particular platform will meet the social and emotional and academic needs of all of our kids.
Okay, Jenna Seltzer has a question. Will the curriculum in the FVLP start from the beginning of the year or pick up where they are currently?
Well, the short answer is they'll pick up from where they are currently. We're not going to start school over again. I mean, I think a lot of what we have been doing up to this point, frankly, you know, remembering that we haven't been in brick and mortar schools since March, is assessing where students are. We are, if you're an elementary parent, and I guess you all are, you got a letter from me indicating that we are going to be administering the MAP test, NWEA. And, you know, so we need to find out where kids are so that we can, you know, find out if there have been gaps that have happened over the summer or even in the spring. And although that's something that we do every year, it's particularly important this year. And so we'll be finding out where the students are and taking them from where they are to where we need them to go. And admittedly, that's going to look different this year, but I think it's going to look different for almost all students, whether they're in brick and mortar or fully virtual.
Great.
But to answer your question, you know, they'll pick up the curriculum from where we are.
I just lost my place. Somebody was actually asking, and I lost her question, that her kindergartner is actually having a horrible experience live streaming this week. Can she pull her out of school and start her again on October 13th when she has a direct connection with a teacher?
We would prefer that she stay in school. I think that disconnect, I don't think that would be helpful. We're sorry to hear that she's having an unpleasant time live streaming in kindergarten, but it's best for her to stay in school and then move into this platform.
Okay, thank you. Kelly McMasters is asking, is there still a 400 student cap?
At this point, yes. And I say that because, again, trying to, the best of our ability, balance what we can fiscally do at this particular point. We felt that 400, going off of what we were working on, the conditions we were working under, you know, around 300 or so, we think we'll be okay with 400. But if it balloons to, you know, higher than 400, I guess we'll have to revisit that. But right now, again, I can't underscore, you know, enough how we have to balance from a fiscal standpoint and then making sure that everybody gets what they need and deserve. And we believe 400, we should be okay. Again, with having a little bit of flexibility if and when it is higher than that, but I think we'll be okay.
Marcia Smith would like to know, why is there uncertainty about the children returning to their original teacher they were assigned to if they were already counted as part of the class? In other words, we said that if a child decides to come back, we can't guarantee, right, that they would go back into the same teacher. Why can't that be guaranteed?
Well, things change over the course of the year. It probably won't surprise you to hear, that we have a significant number of students who move into the district over the course of the year and sometimes move out. So we just wanted to make sure, up front that everybody was clear about that. I think it's just looking on the side of caution.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Alter said, can we be assured that small group differentiated instruction will take place at the kindergarten level?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I don't want to go into a dissertation about what that might look like, but again, to be fair to everyone, this is the first time that every kindergartner has had an iPad. It's the first time the teachers are teaching either live stream or virtual in terms of what we're talking about tonight. So the technology gives us many opportunities to do exactly that. But it's not going to happen overnight in every single case. You heard me say that, in September when we were talking about live streaming, and I just have to again just caution everybody that we're teaching. School looks very different everywhere than it did last September, and absolutely there will be differentiation. There will be individual attention to children, but it's going to look different this year than it's looked in other years, and it may take some time to roll out, especially in the fully virtual school, which we're doing for the very first time.
Great, thank you. Meredith Tannenbaum would like for me to make sure that, I guess, the second part of Joshua Milgram's question was not answered. Do the 6 teachers for the FVLP have elementary classroom teaching experience in the grades for which they are now being assigned? We know they are certified teachers, but that is not specifically speaking about their experience. So do the 6 teachers have classroom teaching experience in elementary?
So I'll take that question. So when we look at certification for teachers, elementary certification is typically kindergarten through 6th grade. So all of the teachers that are being put in these 6 slots have elementary certification. They also have experience teaching in those grade bands across K through 6.
Thank you. And again, speaking to the 6 dedicated teachers, Matthew Banks would like to know, if only we have 6 dedicated teachers now toward this new virtual platform, how will you ensure that the class size stays under 30 so the kids can get the full attention and teaching they need if more kids opt into the program, or if COVID accelerates of more students going virtual? So again, yep. Okay.
Yep, that's great. It's a great question, and that may happen for sure. What I'll say is that if the class sizes are higher than 65 or 60, and we're finding that there are disproportionate amounts between grade levels, we have some flexibility to potential support classroom instruction. If that means that we need to add to what we currently have, we will look to potentially do that if we really need to. But that's something it's important for the parents to know too. As much and as mindful as we are trying to be from an educational standpoint, certainly a fiscal standpoint, if there are realities that are outside of that zone that we have to address, then we'll certainly address those.
I just would like to add to that, if I understood part of that question. I just want to reiterate what I think both Dr. Hines and I have said earlier, which is that the students who quarantine will not join the fully virtual students. And if we go like fully remote, the virtual school will still stay a school, in and of itself. and the teachers in the brick and mortar school will go remote with their students. So I know we were going back and forth a little bit with building-based services provided and virtual school. But I think if I understood that question correctly, we're not going to be taking kids out of the brick and mortar school and putting them in the fully virtual school. That will not happen.
Correct.
Until January 8th, possibly.
Okay, so Maureen and Alan Baggio are asking, how will children in the FE platform access in-building services such as speech? Can they be assessed while on the platform? Thank you. Thank you for saying thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. We've actually, even as we are developing this plan, whether we have a fully virtual school or not, that's a question for those students who were learning remotely. And as we have been all summer, at least I think we have, we've been trying to find some creative ways and some creative instruments to do that. Assessments, obviously, are meant to take a slice of time of where a student is. And if the student isn't in front of you, and if the student is behind a computer where there might be other people, it's something that we've been very cognizant of, and we're looking into that very, very carefully. The NWEAs, for example, are tests that we are going to give remotely, and we're going to try to time them. We're going to try to monitor it. Again, we're doing it for the first time. We're going to see where it goes, and we're going to try to be as mindful as we can of getting accurate results, because it's really critical that we find out where students are so we can meet them where they are and bring them forward academically and socially and emotionally.
Thank you. A question from Andrew Sachs. With some children moving to the virtual school, in-school classes will be even smaller. Keeping with the budget constraints, can some of those classes be combined and more teachers move to fully virtual to keep the class sizes more equitable?
Yeah, so I can answer that one. And you talk about, and listen, if this was the beginning or before school started, I think that would be a real good solution. But we're talking about trying to not be disruptive to other classrooms and other students and other teachers, other families. So my recommendation at this point wouldn't to not go in that direction at this point. I think if it was earlier, yes. Right now, I just don't think that's feasible, but it's a really great suggestion.
Jonathan Geisler would like to know, can one of the teachers provide a sample day with schedule, number of students per live instruction, number of small groups, etc.? The information is too vague to really understand what it would look like. Can we do Can we do a day in the life of? Is there possible to put up on the website what the day, a typical day would look like?
I can just give it to you again. I know, we've been through this dynamic with a number of plans, and people want specific answers, and I understand that, but we don't have all the parameters in place yet. But let me just give you what a third grade might look like. So as the slide that we showed at the beginning of this presentation said, every morning we'll start with a morning meeting. If I'm the teacher, I will at around 8:30, I'll greet the students. Teachers in brick and mortar schools have morning meetings where they go through the schedule. In third grade, they may actually start independent reading while the teacher goes around and looks at homework, goes into the Google Classroom, looks at homework, or they may break into groups to continue work that was started the day before. They will have an ELA lesson. They may have an ELA lesson followed by a live special. And again, that was in the slides earlier. Then they might have a break to get away from the screen, maybe get a little exercise, go out and get some fresh air. Then they might come back and have a math lesson, which would be live. Then they would go to lunch for an hour. And then the teacher, might break them out into small groups. Again, it's an art. I know you want a specific answer, but it really depends on what's happening, the cohort, where we are in the year. There may be projects going on. students may be meeting in groups, in smaller groups. And, you know, again, interspersed in all this, and very important, is our social and emotional learning. Our counselors will be involved with that, with the teachers, and that will be integrated into a lot of what we do. And then, you know, usually we'll have a closure at the end of the day. That's not required. It's not in the slide, but, you know, that would be not unusual to say, okay, you know, here's what happened today, and I'll see you tomorrow, and, you know, have a great day. And if there are any issues, let me know. So, you know, it will be a fairly typical day, even if you were in school, except it will be virtual, and it will not be 7 hours, but it isn't in the brick and mortar school either.
Got it. Thank you. Stephanie Kane would like to know, are children who have already been virtual given priority for the virtual school? So how are we taking sign up?
It's first come, first served. So if someone's looking to, you know, register, they register. Clearly, actually, if there is someone who has priority, it's our medically fragile kids. That's non-negotiable for not only for us, it's for any child in New York State. So they have first preference. And you know, again, I'm hoping after this evening, and again after the emails are answered, that you have enough information to make an informed decision.
So Mio Uchibori is saying, do you mean we can't opt for my child to switch back to regular class anymore this year? So I again, and there have been some other questions regarding the dates for opting in. And I think, so Mia would like clarification. Is it you opt in now until January 8th, and then you opt in again? Or
January 8th,
January
that's right.
8th on?
So yeah, so I guess the easiest way to do this is up until this Sunday, you will make a determination to opt in if you chose to. If you like the experience, which we believe you will, up until January 8th, then you would opt in again if you wanted to continue it. If you wanted to go back, or if you wanted to move, I should say, to the classroom, the brick and mortar school itself, then you would make that decision to do it then. But if you stayed in past January 8th and you opted back in, you would be there for the full year.
Okay, Claire DZ is asking a question. If teachers being assigned to if teachers are being assigned to teach as part of FVLP are currently teaching in-person classes, what will happen to their in-person students? If a new teacher needs to be assigned and/or hired to deal with these new positions, why can't the new teachers be assigned to the FVLP instead of making the in-person students have to go through another transition?
Yeah, I can take that question. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 of our classroom teachers among the 6 that are currently teaching in brick and mortar classrooms in general education. They're moving to the virtual platform, and we have 2 staff members in other areas of our elementary program that are moving into those 2 classrooms. They happen to be other teachers in the schools of the classroom that are being replaced.
Thank you. Josh Lichtenstein is asking, if there are enough students who want to opt into a grade, will additional teachers be assigned? 2 30-person sections would be challenging for a teacher, and this would be a clear indication that many families want virtual. Why wouldn't that size group warrant further resources? And I believe that question has been asked by a couple of other people.
Yeah, I thought we answered that already.
I think the question that has been, I guess, had some confusion with regards to your answer is that, are you saying that you will hire more teachers if needed?
We would have to, based on the numbers that we have and where the students, like, again, if we have a grade level that is very, very high and would be above, let's say, the 30, if the cohort's split in half, let's say it's 60 kids in that particular grade level, and you're looking at an A and a B group, a blue and a white group within that grade level, right? If it's high, if it's really high, it's something that we will have to really look at to see if we have to add additional resources, such as a particular teacher. If we have to add a teacher, then that's something that we would look to do, but we won't know that until we have all the numbers in front of us early next week.
Question is, if we've been automatically enrolled into FELB, which I don't think anybody was automatically enrolled, how do we opt in for in-person school? So if someone decides they don't want to do the fully virtual now, how do they do that?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. That, you know what, we'll have some correspondence coming out very, very soon. So if when you received that email, I believe there were some families that were automatically moved into this particular program that's coming October 13th, and I believe some of you may have emailed me about that. We weren't making an assumption. That was something that shouldn't have happened, and my apologies for that. So if you want to move into if you don't want to be in the particular program, we'll have some correspondence to make sure that that's not happening. So I appreciate
Dr. Hines, will we be sending the email again, the opt-in email again, and based on the responses, because some people are saying they don't have their email, so we'll resend.
They didn't. They're saying they didn't receive an email at all.
Yeah. Well, they misplaced it. I don't.
Okay. All right. So let me talk to our tech crew, and then we'll get something out shortly.
Okay, great.
I'd also just say, sorry to cut in, but if you think you didn't get an email, make sure you contact your building and make sure they have it correctly.
Okay, thank you. So in your letter, Dr. Hines, you wrote, Stephanie Alter would like to ask, you said last week that the brick and mortar option is the preferred option. Can you explain why you said that?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't recall saying preferred. Well, yes, I did. It's not the same experience. And listen, when that letter was sent, it was never meant to offend anybody. And I think it landed on some people the way I didn't potentially want it to. Having an experience in school is a different experience than outside of school. And what we're trying to do with this particular program is to make it, not to use the word robust again, but to make it really, really special. So it does mirror that. The live streaming component, and again, I know some people had a really wonderful experience, and I'm really happy to hear that. But if we were to continue just live streaming, it is not the same. It's just not the same. You're not getting the same, I don't believe, especially at the primary level, the same type of quality education. And there are some great teachers, not only here, but in other places in New York and beyond, that do incredible things via live streaming, even with primary kids. But being in a particular school, brick and mortar wise, there are some different experiences that you have. And so we are trying to the best of our ability to replicate that with this particular program. So it was never meant to offend anybody or to upset anybody. It was meant to say that, it's a different experience. And that was the real reason for mentioning that.
Thank you. Jim Fagan would like to know, if I could, Carolyn Fagan, sorry, from a social emotional perspective, as well as an academic perspective, how will the transition from the current classroom to the fully virtual be handled?
So we have talked all summer long, and I mean all summer long. It's not the point of tonight's forum, but you may also recall that we spent months coming up with a fully remote plan and a hybrid plan for all three levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. And that's been at the forefront, of everything that we've talked about. Certainly for those of you who know me from SUSA, it's been something that I have always believed in. And as I mentioned earlier, all 5 elementary schools have programs that are very special in their buildings. So, it's just something that's almost a given with all the educators at this point. This COVID crisis has not only been a medical crisis, but it's been a financial crisis, and it's been an emotional crisis for a lot of people, not just kids. And so it really is on the forefront of what we're doing and thinking about. And that's why we felt it so important to have a counselor as part of this plan, and access to have parents have access to those counselors, and to have the counselors working with the teachers to integrate social and emotional learning, starting on the very first week.
Someone whose name I cannot pronounce either, Rueda, and I can't try your last name, I'm sorry. Will there be an EA to help facilitate live sessions when there are more than 20 students attending? What kind of equipment will be provided to these teachers?
So I can answer that. At this particular moment, we're not looking at EAs. We're not looking at, those type of supports yet. And again, until we know what the actual numbers are. But I do think it's important, since we talked about technology or equipment that's being used, I want us to go back in time a little bit to June. And this was the importance of moving to a one-on-one as far as a school district is concerned. We spent over $1.4 million on new Chromebooks and getting teachers the equipment that they need, making sure every student, of course, has not only a Chromebook, but a teacher does as well. It sets us up very nicely to move in this direction. I think, as Dr. Mioli said before, it may not just be about, having another hands on deck. It's about the professional development that's incredibly important. And that's not just for our 6 teachers. It's for all of our educators within our school district. And that's something that is really in the forefront of everything that we're doing. And I think another thing to really understand too is that we will be assessing this program as time goes on, because we will have to not only determine what the student expectations are and what our expectations are for our educators, but then we have to monitor what we're doing throughout the year, and we'll receive that feedback. And again, we'll make this the best that we can be. But where we are starting at right now is what we're sharing with you. But this is a program that we believe will evolve to an incredible program over time.
Okay, there seems to be confusion about, and it's from several people. So the question is, if the virtual teachers are being pulled from regular grade level classrooms, will their previous students be redistributed among the other grade level classes, or will they have their other classes, which will now contain more students than before? So Dr. Shields, if you can again explain that, if a teacher's coming from a regular classroom and now teaching virtual, what happens to the children in that classroom?
The students that are in that classroom will stay in that classroom. In the case of two grade level teachers that are moving into the virtual platform, we will be replacing them with another teacher coming into the room. So those students will stay together that are currently in the class, and there'll be another elementary certified teacher coming in to teach them that's currently on our staff in another role.
Thank you. So someone is asking, if we don't opt into FELB, then she has to go back to full-time in-person school starting when? So if someone decides that they don't want to do this program, when do they have to start full-time school? Would it be still on October 13th?
Yes, it would.
October 13th. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. It's 8:30. We said that we were going to do this until 8. We have gone further than 8. I'm trying to go through and see if there are questions. There are people still confused about teacher certification and their experience. They are worried that these are unexperienced teachers on the elementary level. So if we can please once again clarify.
So these are our teachers. We're not hiring new teachers for these positions. So they've already been vetted and gone through, the hiring process. And in some cases, many of them have been in the district for quite some time. So they are certified to teach the grade levels. and they have, experience that will be an asset to their role in whether they're in the virtual platform or whether they're replacing people that are going into the virtual platform.
Okay, so someone is asking if they opt them in January, will they be on par with the brick and mortar classes? That's the question. So if they decide to, if somebody leaves their child in now, and then in January they opt them in, will they be on par?
So one of the reasons why we felt it was so important to have principals who are principals of the brick and mortar school supervising the virtual school was for that very reason. We need to, and by the way, that will be largely my job as assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. We'll be looking, just as we look for consistency, across the schools. Schools have different cultures and different things that make them special. But obviously we want to look for instructional consistency, and we will be looking for that as well with our sixth school, elementary school, if you will, the virtual school. And that will be a large part of what we are monitoring as we move forward with this plan.
Thank you. So there's also, I guess, questions with regards, I see them several of times, people are asking questions about who should they direct their, it says if they have further questions about specific family situations regarding the FVLP, who should they direct their questions to? Would you say that they direct their questions to their building principal at this point, or should they direct their specific questions to the administrator supervising that grade?
So I think to answer that question, is it about entering into the particular program, or it's about just general questions about the program itself?
It says if we have further questions about our specific family situations and how it would work with FVLP, to whom should we direct them?
So I would say at this point, you should direct them, if it's about something in particular, that actual email address at this point. And then if we had to direct the actual question itself, we could figure out a place for it to go, whether it's the building principal or somewhere else. Okay. So I think we would start.
And the email is communityquestions@portnet.org, correct? Yes.
That is correct. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and again, there seems to be confusion, and I don't know why, because I think we've said it, so I'm going to ask that we say it again. If schools have to close due to infection rates, do the children stay with their class, their FVLP class, or do they go back into their old brick and mortar class that is now remote?
So if we shut down as a school district, if the numbers rise, they stay in this particular class. If they opt into this particular program, that's where they stay.
Okay. It's 8:34. I don't know. There are still questions, and so I'm trying to go through questions that, so people again are asking for the form. So we are going to send any other email with the form for them to register their children if they didn't receive the email.
Correct.
There was a question about the teachers' bandwidth. Those teachers that are teaching remote, and they will be teaching from their homes. So are we ensuring that they have the correct bandwidth? Are we ensuring that they know how to use Google Meet and all of the other technology?
So we'll have a checklist to make sure that they will be able to operate at a very high level, whether it's bandwidth or certainly the technology that they're using. We'll make sure they're operational and ready to go.
Okay, I am going to, again, there's more questions, but I know that we had said 8 p.m. and there's, I don't want to keep going can we, I'm asking what we should do as far as process is concerned with regards to, are we going to send a letter to the remaining with this information. We're going to put this information on the website, correct?
Correct. That's
We're
correct.
going to and we're going to send an email out again with all the information on the,
To opt in.
right. And then we're going to, are we going to be sending specific building information or how in your email, I think there's some confusion about who they should be contacting. So in your email, will it also say some of the general facts that we've reviewed this evening?
Yeah, why don't we do this? We can create maybe an FAQ, like frequently asked questions, with some answers that hopefully will be helpful to them. But I also, want to underscore it's important for them, for the community to ask questions via that email address, the community email address, if they have specific questions. But that's the way I would do it for right now. We'll put this presentation on the website. We'll certainly put this conversation on the website. So anybody who missed it, they can certainly watch it. We'll email tomorrow the opt-in form with some frequently asked questions, and then they know how to register if they so want to. And then from there, I don't know, from a process standpoint, I'm not sure what else would be needed at this point.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. I know I'm not technically a panelist tonight. I know we've been answering questions for an hour now. And I really appreciate the time that the three of you have put into this, not just preparing for tonight, but over the preceding months preparing for this. And a lot of conversations went into this plan. And I think that we're all hoping that it's going to become something great. But I'm very cognizant of the fact that this is a huge decision for a lot of parents. And a lot of people feel that the option was dropped like a bomb last Friday, and they haven't had an opportunity to ask any questions. At every open meeting that we've had at board meetings, we've bumped the fully virtual questions because we didn't have enough information and we were saying this form was coming. So I know it's 8:30 at night. I know you've been asking questions for an hour, but I have two questions for you. I'm wondering, is it possible, does it make sense to go a little bit longer? Because the time is really short for questions to be answered for these parents. They need to be making a decision by the 4th. And then the other thing is that there was a question in the chat from Melanie and Dino that said, will administrators be available tomorrow to answer questions? And I think in her question, she noted, she's assuming obviously nobody's answering the phones over the weekend or email over the weekend. So it seems to me, and I throw this to you, Dr. Hines, we need to figure out some way to make sure that people's questions are answered in time, and the time is so short. So is it better that we keep going a little bit longer now, or can we put some sort of document up on the website with the additional questions? Will administrators be available tomorrow to answer the additional questions? It seems some sort of, just to my mind, it seems some sort of public way of answering. Some of it would probably be more efficient for you, because I know your plates are not a plate anymore. It's just the table is covered with it, right?
Well, if I can ask, I'm not sure, Emily, how many more questions were there that weren't answered? I mean, roundabout, if that's even possible to gauge.
85 questions are still unanswered.
Except that 85 are
Some of them are repeat.
A lot of them are repeat questions. So if we can stop, if I don't know how to turn off the questions, we can go through them. But what happens is people are still going. So if people would want to just stop asking, we can go through them quickly. But people are not.
I also have 3 people who have their hands raised for a time period also, so we'll know.
So
All right,
I'm not sure how to turn off. Can we turn off the questions, like, so people can stop asking?
I wouldn't turn off the questions. I mean, when we hit the point where we need to end for the night, let's just end for the night. But then at least we would have the additional questions gathered to be answered, right? Because they're going to ask them in some form. Seems like we have it being done efficiently here.
Well, listen, and I think this is really important. And I've been thinking this, and I know Dr. Mioli and Dr. Shields has as well. We don't want to leave unanswered questions. You're making a very, very important decision. And we want to honor that. So maybe for the next, up until 9 o'clock, let's go to 9 o'clock. Let's answer as many questions as we can. And then, we can gather the remaining questions and look to post them with the answers. So you have what you need to make that informed decision.
Okay, so let's go. No, then let's go. I'm just going to go straight down from the top. King Heinz, since there must be compromises to make ends meet and the FELP student program is being flexible, how is the in-school program contributing to freeing up resources? Fair and equitable education for all students.
Wait, can you repeat that question?
No, because I just dismissed it. Basically, how do I do this? Wait, I have to figure out how to do this. Julie, where are you? Julie will find it and she will.
Okay.
I will find it and bring it back up.
Thank you.
Because Kim Alardi saying, how do you explain the attempt to hire 42 extra paraprofessionals for walking students to the bathroom, but only 6 teachers for 400 students?
Oh, that's easy. Because we want to make sure the students who are inside are safe. And it's not just for walking students to bathrooms, it's for making sure arrival and dismissal and a whole host of other responsibilities. When we decided to go all in, there are other considerations that we had to make, and making sure that the students who are in our schools are safe, not just in the bathrooms, but the cafeterias, and as they enter and exit our building for the day. That was the reason why. So it's not what's more important, as far as 6 teachers versus, and it wasn't 42. We didn't go nearly as high as that. But I don't like to compare, as far as, level of importance. Everyone's just as important. We just allocated resources differently.
Okay. Tyler Smith, Dr. Mioli detailed the contents of a FELP student's day and weeks. How does this compare to the contents of an in-person student's days and weeks in terms of the number of lessons, subjects, etc.?
Well, again, generically, one of the interesting things about this for somebody my age is that I've been observing classrooms for 40 years. For many of you, when you're watching a computer screen, it's your first time seeing the classroom, through the computer screen. So what you have not been seeing for the last 39 years is the amount of in and out of classrooms that goes on all the time. And again, forgive me, but I'm just going to say at SUSE last year, we redid our entire master schedule because the teachers were telling me that it was very difficult to find 40 minutes in a day where they could actually teach with all of the kids in the class. And so again, I don't want to start down another whole path, but as you know, if you are comparing, the day that I outlined earlier to a fictional day where all the students are in the classroom all day long, then that's fiction. So that was a long answer. The short answer is I think it's going to be very comparable. In some ways, I think it's going to be better because there are ways that we can use the technology once it matures and once the pedagogy matures that will really be outstanding and that will really give teachers a lot more tools to do a lot more things.
Thank you.
Ms.
Lexi,
Bates,
yes.
Ms. Bates, did you see that I found the question for you and put it in your chat? Or would you like me to ask it?
Can you ask it?
Yes. Since there must be compromises to make ends meet and the FELP student program is being flexible, how is the in-school program contributing to freeing up resources? Fair and equitable education for all students. That's the question. I guess they're wondering, how are we freeing up resources within our program by doing this, I guess, is how they're asking the question.
Well, the resources that we're freeing up are capital of the educators that we're using to make this program run. I mean, so if we're talking about resources and looking at our teachers as our primary resource, that's what we're doing. And then as far as professional development is concerned, that's another resource that we're using from one of our professional developers to make sure that our educators have what they need from a professional development standpoint. And then, of course, using any of the other educational resources that we have. But you know, again, I think it's a really good question, because it is incredibly important that there's equity and parity as far as what we're doing in, I don't want to say both sets of schools, because it's really one universal school as a school district, that we're, to the best of our ability, making sure that the brick and mortar have what they need, and certainly what our virtual students and staff have what they need. And this is just our starting point right now. There are some questions that will be asked and have been asked that we may not have all the answers right now, but we certainly will as time moves on. And that's the reality. But the other reality is we will do everything we can to make sure that this is as successful as possible. This is incredibly important for the Board of Education, and for myself, and definitely for my other two colleagues here. This is like really the first thing we think about when we wake up in the morning, and the last thing we think about before we go to bed. We've spent a lot of time on this, and you know, as we started this conversation, we're very excited to share this information with you, and it will get better over time.
Lexi Sachs, Dr. Hines, I know you're passionate about this, but if we want to get through as many questions as possible, I'm just going to ask that we make the answers briefer. Sorry, but I just want to get everybody's question.
Impossible. Okay.
I know. Lexi Sachs, if students withdraw from the school district because of the inequitable class size on this platform and opt for an outside virtual platform, could re-enroll in the school district later in the year? So can they re-enroll if they change their minds?
Yeah, I mean, if a parent decides to not have them enrolled any longer here and then enroll them somewhere else, it would just be like if they went to another school district. Yeah, they can certainly re-enroll at some point.
Thank you. Kim Alardi would like to know, what do you consider to be a bare minimum for educating our children? Would 60-1 be good enough for your children? Would it?
I'm not sure who that's geared toward.
I guess it's geared, I don't know. It's geared to all, I guess, to you, to Dr. Mioli, to Dr. Shields.
I think, I mean, I'll answer that. You know, yes, based on the framework that we're talking about right now, or else we wouldn't be providing it. My litmus test for anything that I do here is if it's good enough for my own kids, all 5 of my kids. And I've already answered this question before when we met last week.
Thank you. Meredith Tannenbaum would like to know, even though you say that each grade level teacher will only be working with up to 30 students at a time, which is still too many, he or she is still responsible for the teaching of up to 65 students in that grade. How do you propose this teacher will be equipped to oversee the educational, social, and emotional needs of such a large group of students? I think this is basically a professional development question, but I won't.
It's also a team question. Again, I think if you go back and look at the slides, we've taken great pains to create much as happens in the brick and mortar schools, a team of educators who can work together to do that.
Thank you. Matthew Banks, if you only have 6 dedicated teachers now toward this new virtual platform, how will you ensure that the class sizes stay under 30 so that kids can get the full attention and teaching they need if more kids opt into the program, or if COVID accelerates of more students going virtual?
So if we're finding that depending on the number of kids that are in a particular grade level, if they're very, very high, there are certain adjustments that we'll have to make with the current, number of teachers that we have in place. And as I said before, if we need to add potentially another teacher, that is something that we would consider moving forward, depending on the numbers that we have.
Susan Guild would like to know, can there be an additional opt-in or out in March?
That's a good question, and I would say at this point, I think anything is possible, depending on how we're moving forward. I think again, the theme is to be flexible, and if that's something that we need to do, that's something we can certainly have conversations about. I'm certainly open to it.
Lexi Sachs would like to know, to clarify, a student that is COVID positive is able to live stream into their class. How is it fair that they're given a better virtual platform, less students, and more interaction, while our children are being penalized because their parents are choosing to be cautious?
I don't know if I agree with it's a better platform. It's live streaming, and again, I think we've said before that live streaming at times can really be very one-dimensional. This is certainly meant to be much more interactive and much more engaging.
Thank you. Cindy Tse is saying 400 kids max, but is there a cap per grade? What happens if one grade has a much larger number of kids than others? So is it a cap per grade or is it overall?
We don't have a cap per grade, but as I said before, if there are other grade levels that are disproportionately higher than others, then we'll have to make some adjustments internally with some of our teachers and or possibly adding another teacher if we needed to.
Kim Alardi is asking for Elon Green. She thinks we didn't understand his question. Perhaps we didn't. By giving parents the choice between being fully in the classroom or fully virtual and no opt-in later, this will inevitably inflate the number of children in each class. Why, Dr. Hines, are you prioritizing expedience over the safety of children? I don't know.
I don't think I am. I don't think the subcommittee is as well. And I think the timeline that we have put in place is practical. So I don't, from an expedient standpoint, I have to look at the safety of all of our kids and what we have to move forward for all of our kids, both virtually and in the brick and mortar. So I don't think that's happening at all.
Okay. I don't know what just happened to some questions, but okay. The repeated vague answer about the Teddy, no last name, and you're breaking my rules, Teddy. The repeated vague answer about the teacher qualification puts more doubt their experience teaching. I don't know if you can answer this question again, but that was this. I don't know if that was a question actually. Mike Ertel, based on all these questions and confusion, perhaps another meeting to clarify further what makes sense and allow parents to understand fully so they have the information needed to make such an important decision.
Is that a question or was that a statement?
I think the question is, can we have another?
Another forum?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something I would have to discuss.
Dr.
With the
Hines,
Board of
aren't we having a board meeting on October 13th where we would be discussing this? I guess the question would be another forum before October 13th, although that would, I guess you'd have to figure that timing wise, since you then have everyone opting in by October 4th.
And any time that we go past October 4th pushes back our potential starting date to start this. And again, keeping in mind, because we've heard this a lot, is that means the students would remain with the classroom teacher right now. And so we've heard concerns as to, moving them at this point to this new virtual school. So it would move back that timeline, which I wouldn't recommend. But again, listen, we don't want to leave any unanswered questions. It seems like a lot of the questions there are themes to it as far as, the certification of the teachers. Do they have experience? I think Dr. Shields said a few times, not only are they elementary certified, but they have experience in elementary settings, teaching elementary students in the classrooms. So, and they're our teachers, we're not hiring them. But the other themes are, as far as opting in and opting out, when can that happen? Can it happen more? I just, at this point, I think the PowerPoint, presents a very good, at least understanding, reference point for parents to make a decision. But, having another forum, we're going on almost 2 hours now. My recommendation would be to send questions and for us to, answer those questions and then post those answers so parents can make that informed decision.
Okay, we're going to just go for a few more, I guess. Laura Bisberg, will you share on Monday how many students have opted in for each grade? Not if we have another forum, I guess. But the question is, will you share how many? Can we give information on how many students we have finally opted in, and can we give it by grade level?
I mean, we can. You mean for the parents or for us to make informed decisions?
Parents. I guess parents want to know by Monday. So after Sunday's deadline on Monday.
I don't know if I can commit to Monday. I think we can certainly let them know soon. I don't know if I would guarantee Monday though.
Okay. Grace Chan, what happens if the 6 assigned teachers have difficulties to give interaction and attention to the 30 to 60 students? Is there an alternative plan?
We will, again, we have supervision, we have a team, we have oversight, we have support. So we will make sure that whatever problems present themselves, that they are solved.
Daniel Greenberg says, I think many parents, myself included, would like to be able to opt in and out more frequently. We should not have to choose between health and education. Why are we being locked in? What happens when parents are scared to send their kids due to numbers and health concerns, and yet virtual isn't an option? FLV needs to be an option that parents have accessible as the year goes. That was, I think, more of a statement, but Kim Alardi, how do you do a morning meeting for 60 students? Yes, let's actually unmute Kim. I think she had her hand raised, right? Did she have her hand raised?
She did. Just a second. I'm finding her name now that you're saying that.
Sorry.
No problem. Actually, I don't see that she's on this call. Let me look one more time.
Okay.
So,
Hi, I'm here.
yes, sorry.
Hi. I teach in early childhood setting, and we do morning meeting through responsive classroom. And morning meetings are typically very, very interactive. And I'm wondering how you plan to make morning meeting interactive with up to 60 children.
Or even 30.
Or even 30.
Yeah, so it may be 20, and it may be 3 times. And, again, I've been in all 5 of the elementary schools at least 5 times since school opened, and the things are a lot less interactive in brick and mortar. I don't know where you're teaching or what your experience is, but the students have masks on, they're at their desks, they're separated, they're socially distanced, they have shields up. In some cases, the teachers have shields around their desks. So, we are not, there are no rugs left in the rooms anymore. So, again, is it a challenge? Yes. I've said that, I think, all night, but it can be done, and we'll make sure that it's done well.
So Melanie and Dina would like to know, what is the option if we don't choose in school or FVLP? Is there an option? You're either in school or you're fully virtual?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I hate to give this answer, but then it's homeschooling.
Okay.
That's the only option.
Justin Renna, why can't Dr. Shields just let us know who the teachers are that are being pulled?
We will do that tomorrow. We're not going to do that via a forum, but we'll make that known tomorrow for sure. And I appreciate that question.
Caroline Ashby, as of last Friday, families could opt into FV on a month-to-month basis. That was in writing and should be honored. Working parents do not know whether work from home arrangements will last through January. Will you honor that or be flexible when and if a schedule change is beyond a parent's control?
So I think we've answered that. There was a hard commitment that we recommended, well, the subcommittee recommended that we go into for the full year. We've now moved it back to January, so we are trying to be flexible. And I would say, you know, at this point, you know, the month of September was really meant to be flexible, getting our feet underneath us, getting our sea legs underneath us. But as far as the commitment to all in until January, that's something that we feel at this point is moving in the right direction.
So there's a question, what happens if if a family or a child's health circumstances change? So what if there's a child who's,
Yep.
Elizabeth Bakuta was asking that question.
Yep. And clearly, you know, for some cases, I mean, it will be a case-by-case basis if there are extenuating circumstances. Of course, we would honor that.
Okay, it's 9:01. Dr. Hines, there are more questions. People are still typing in questions, so I don't know what you would like to do.
So I'm going to ask that they submit their questions if we haven't answered them.
I think, Julie?
Or we can.
Take the chat and we can submit these questions to you to answer.
Okay, so
The chat.
Julie, will you do that? Like from the Q&A, you mean?
Yes, we can. We can get it from John Johnert. So yes, that's fine.
Okay, okay.
And
So,
we can get a determination how many questions were answered tonight as well.
I can get everything for you. Yes.
Great.
yes. So we've answered, according to our Q&A, 177 questions. We have 67 still open.
Can I also ask Dr. Hines, there was a request on the slide that was skipped, which is slide number 11. Could you please share your screen as we close out this evening and let people just have a moment to glance at the slide now that you've explained it, especially since it had the January 8th dates on it?
Can we also please make sure we tell people what the timing will be for a document being posted with the remaining questions? And I don't know that we actually answered the question about whether or not people will be available tomorrow to answer additional questions, or if emails will be answered over the weekend as people are making this decision for Sunday.
Can everyone see slide 11 right now?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Hines, but put it in presentation form because the other slides are taking up the space, but you
Okay.
can see it.
I'm sorry, Rachel, can you just ask your question again? Oh, shoot, sorry, hold on. Just ask your question again, my apologies.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, can we just clarify for everybody when we expect that we'll be able to answer these remaining questions? When can people expect that a document will be posted with the rest of the answers? And I think it got lost in my longer question earlier, but the parent who asked the question about whether administrators will be available tomorrow to answer questions, will there be administrators available? And potentially even over the weekend by email as people are making this decision. What's the best way that people can proceed to get the rest of their questions answered?
I would say the first thing is just ask the questions tomorrow, and then I'll have some internal conversations with my team, and then if there's more information to come forward, I can move that forward. I can't really make that determination right now. So we'll have more correspondence coming out to the community tomorrow regarding how the questions will be answered.
Thank
Right,
you.
but tomorrow, Dr. Hines will be able to put on the website this presentation because it's available, correct?
That is correct.
And tomorrow we're also going to resend the email for opting in.
That's
people
correct.
may have not had.
That's
and
right.
We'll send the clarification. Basically, everyone's not opted in yet, right? You have to actually fill out the form again.
There's a registration form, correct.
Okay. So that for sure will be done tomorrow. This presentation will be put up on the website, as well as the email with the process for signing in will also go out tomorrow. The rest, as far as the remaining questions that may exist, we'll figure out a process for that.
Correct.
Okay. I think, so it is, that's your plan. I think, Julie, you want to just give it a couple of minutes for people to see? And we want to thank everyone for being here. And Julie will end the meeting in a few minutes, but thank you to everyone.